Hi everyone, I'm Lauren Conlin, and welcome to Midnight Currents, the Brooklyn nightclub drownings. On today's episode, we are going to do things a little bit differently, and we're going to dive into the, quote, underbelly of Brooklyn's nightlife scene, specifically the Mirage, which was a former neon-lit paradise, let's call it, where electric dreams collide with, if you are certain people, a nightmare. Now, according to reports, there have been 3 lives lost there due to overdoses, a trail of medical emergencies. Obviously, we have Carl and John. And then we have a kidnapping, and I'll probably get into that on a later episode because the kidnapping is quite complex. So here we have a venue that was pretty entangled in scandal. And the Mirage, this venue, well, it was also seemingly laced with power plays and alleged backroom deals. And the Mirage had a direct line to City Hall and the mayor. So how did this happen? How did New York Mayor Eric Adams become the unlikely lifeline for this party spot that was accused of being a drug-fueled death trap? The Brooklyn Mirage, which, by the way, is now closed, was a seasonal venue, and it was this sprawling 80,000 square foot empire, which was actually billed as North America's largest standing room entertainment complex. And what this really means was it was a huge concert venue. So 6,000 people would pack into this outdoor area. They had great views of the stage, and it was under a massive dome that just was cool. It was just a cool place. And I had never been there, but I had a couple girlfriends who were much younger than me kind of describe this place for me. And they really had a good time there, although they did say how dangerous it was. They definitely said that you got to leave in groups, you can't leave alone, and the service out there was horrible. There were absolutely no streetlights, and it was just kind of a mess. Nevertheless, they had fun. I mean, again, they were also in their 20s, but yeah. So, I mean, this place, it's got people from Jersey, right? It's got Bridge and Tunnel. It's got Manhattan, Brooklyn locals. TikTokers called it, quote, EDM's last bastion. But yeah, peel back all this glamour, and the Mirage, it's not just a vibe, it's a whole story. So from 2017, when doors opened full time, the red flags were there. The State Liquor Authority, or the SLA, and that's kind of New York's booze cops, if you will, they clocked over 1,600 medical calls at the venue between 2018 and 2022 alone. And that's a lot, guys. That is a lot. And there were 88 hospitalizations. Again, I mentioned this kidnapping that we'll discuss on a later episode. A 21-year-old woman's OD, another man's OD, Carl and John. I mean, you've got a lot of questions here. This seems like a lot of issues. And could these ODs have been prevented? Or could these people have been saved? And I'm just asking questions, but as I mentioned, we've got about a 15-minute schlep to the subway with very little service, very little cabs or Ubers out there, basically no lighting. And I mean, I also reported this on a previous episode, and I want to make sure that everybody knows this is unconfirmed by me, but I did hear from multiple sources that there were reports of private ambulances being used in order to not go through the city. Because look, Eric Adams, his whole administration, his whole thing is like, hey, crime is down, homicides are down, assaults are down, everything is down. And so if you are tracking some of these occurrences through the city, that would go into the comp stats, and that would not be great for the administration. So it all seems pretty plausible to me, but again, unconfirmed on the private ambulances. But back to the SLA, they did not mince words about the Mirage. They said at the Mirage there was, quote, rampant drug use. And by 2020, they slapped the Mirage with 23 different violations. And the venue had to cough up about $100,000 in fines. And they hired an SLA monitor to kind of babysit these operations. And they actually tried to ditch this whole deal later on, which failed. But the former owner, his name was Billy Bildstein. He was a significant nightlife vet with a Rolodex of A-listers. He kind of felt like everything was not going his way. He knew things were kind of going down. I mean, if you're in trouble with the SLA, that's a problem because alcohol fuels about 70% of these venues' revenue. So without alcohol, it's kind of like, okay, lights out. So Bildstein tapped into his political cavalry, if you will. His ace was Frank Carone, and this is the Mirage's one-time attorney under Bildstein. But more importantly, Carone is a Brooklyn power broker who just had wrapped a stint as Mayor Eric Adams' chief of staff. So Carone, tight with Adams, obviously, he kind of greased all the wheels here. So in July of 2024, Bildstein scored this high-stakes sit-down with a woman named Catherine Garcia, who was Governor Kathy Hochul's top aide and an SLA overseer. So the meeting was also attended by Adams's chief advisor, Ingrid Lewis-Martin, who is now actually under indictment in 2025. Go figure. And Gothamist.com obtained documents in 2023 pertaining to this meeting in particular. So Bildstein really seemed to paint the SLA as a bully, targeting his, quote, small business. I mean, I would argue that the Mirage is not exactly a small business, but Ingrid Lewis-Martin, she had a post-meeting email that was revealed by Gothamist, and she said, quote, "We are hopeful that under this governor, businesses will be treated fairly by the SLA," end quote. I mean, listen, I wasn't there. It doesn't sound like the SLA was unfairly targeting the Mirage at all. It sounds like the Mirage had serious problems and they were doing their job. But at a City Hall presser soon after this meeting, Eric Adams doubled down and he said, "The backbone of this city is small businesses. If they come to us for help, we give it." I'm just sitting here like, okay, the Mirage, how is it a small business? It makes millions and millions of dollars. This is crazy. But listen, he also said, "I don't think, quote, outsiders should dictate how we enforce here." And then press secretary Fabian Levy also chimed in and he praised the venue's NYPD connections that they had. And then many in the public were like, wait, so this club that's linked to deaths, linked to overdoses, has NYP connections, and the mayor is praising it, while other spots who seem to abide by all the rules just kind of scrape by? Something just wasn't right. So fast forward to 2024, 2025, Eric Adams, he was under indictment along with his former NYPD commissioner, Ed Caban, who later resigned, and Ed Caban's twin brother, James. And I'm going to have former NYPD Lieutenant John D. Macari break down what happened. But I got to just give you a quick spoiler alert. The Mirage, it never reopened in 2025. So the mayor and his boys, they were indicted in September of 2024. The Mirage was supposed to open in May of 2025 after they had sunk in millions of dollars in renovations. And yeah, it never opened. And the new owner went bankrupt. But let me go back to Lieutenant Macari because he's going to break down exactly what happened with the New York City nightlife scandal. And this all stems from Eric Adams really dismantling an operation that the NYPD had in place for a really long time in order to monitor their nightlife and ensure that everybody was safe and everybody was following the rules.
All right, the NYPD's March Operation Program, it's a multi-agency response team. And basically what it was set up in place for was to deal with problematic nightlife locations. Throughout the city, we have restaurants and bars that operate through all hours of the night. Historically, locations that serve alcohol have been known to create problems, such as, assaults, utilization of outdated, expired alcohol, selling bad products, not keeping clean kitchens or clean bathrooms, not adhering to fire rules and occupancy rules. And it's looked at as, and not that it's looked at as, but it's a danger to public safety. So what the March Operation Program did was go to those problematic nightlife locations with Department of Buildings, with the fire department, with the state liquor authority, and ensure that in fact these businesses were operating properly as by the law that they're supposed to adhere to, whether it's the building code, whether it's having fire extinguishers in the correct place, keeping kitchens clean, making sure there's not overcrowding, there's not drugs being used there. And the NYPD is there to look at the criminal aspect of it and ensure that in fact all these happen and operate in a security manner. So Eric Adams, when he came into office, he dismantled the March program, citing that the March program was seeking to harm businesses rather than correct them. So he creates this Office of the Nightlife. And in the Office of the Nightlife, he has a program called Cure that he puts in. And it's Cure is we want to work with businesses. Instead of giving people notifications to the state liquor authority or summonsing locations, enforcement type related actions towards them, he wanted to be more of an advisory role. He wanted the city to be more of advisors, so to cure the problems that were happening. But I think, unfortunately, for a lot of people like myself and a lot of public safety minded people and people that served in the NYPD, our goal was never to shutter businesses. Our goal was, in fact, to cure those businesses and to get them operating legally. And the fact is, the matter is, there are just some businesses that should not be operating in New York City because they refuse to comply, even after numerous warnings and civil and criminal infractions. So by removing the March program, you're not only endangering the public that enters these locations, but you're basically empowering more of the failures that problematic businesses are having. You're empowering them, and not to beat around the bush. I mean, when you look at nightlife locations throughout New York City, historically, drugs have been used in there, prostitution. There's many illegal actions that are happening, including, unfortunately, assaults and murders.
So that was the history of the March operation, but I want John to explain, or Lieutenant Macari to explain, what happened with former NYPD Commissioner Edward Caban's brother, James. So I'm going to have him explain that right now, and I think things will make a little bit more sense to you.
So NYPD Police Commissioner Ed Caban has a twin brother, James Caban. It's been reported that James Caban was running around New York City with a protective detail made up of NYPD detectives in a city-owned car. An allegation had came out from the Juice and More bar in Coney Island. And with the Juice and More bar in Coney Island, they were receiving complaints from the community for hosting parties on the weekends. And as a result, the commanding officer of that precinct was going to the Juice and More bar and summoning that location. So the owner of Juice and More becomes aware of the Cure program, which falls out of the Office of the Nightlife, which is said to have will help businesses stay out of the enforcement arena in the NYPD, and also will help them to get up to speed so that the NYPD doesn't come down and summons their business. Make sure to help them grow and further their business and operate legally. So the owner of Juice and More bar alleges that he reached out to the Office of the Nightlife and he spoke to a man named Ray Martin. Ray Martin has been a longtime friend and advisor and has worked for Eric Adams ever since he was borough president. And I believe he even worked for him when he was the state senator. So Ray Martin, in his official capacity for the office of the Nightlife, which turns out of the mayor's office, stated to the owner of the bar, listen, I can't help you, but you could call James Caban. You could call James Caban, and James Caban could help you because he's the police commissioner's brother. So the owner of Juice and More calls James Caban. James Caban says, if you give me X amount of dollars, I don't remember if it was $1,500 or $2,500, according to what this bar owner alleges, that all your problems with the NYPD will go away. The owner of the bar now feels like he's involved in a shakedown. He's like, I'm calling an official city government to help me get my business up to speed. And they pawn me off to the police commissioner's brother who's looking for $2,500. So that owner goes to the news. He whistleblows. In fact, what happens? He has the text messages and he gives them out to the news. Immediately upon that happening, Ray Martin is immediately terminated from the office of the Nightlife in the mayor's office. Police Commissioner Ed Caban, as a result of that and other federal corruption investigation charges that were looming and alleged to have been coming down, resigned as a result of what was happening. It was a huge media storm around that time.
And I think I might have said this on episode 1, or maybe not, but President Trump had the DOJ toss the indictment against Adams. So at this point, it's tough to say if there is an ongoing investigation targeting anyone else, but something appears to be really off here, especially when it comes to Brooklyn nightlife and everything that I've learned about the Mirage, about the Cabans, about Eric Adams, specifically, again, when it came to him kind of white knighting for the Mirage, which makes absolutely no sense after all of the horrible things happened to people that were connected with the venue. And I mean, the city council people in the district, they even said something needs to be done in that area, specifically concerning the lighting, cell service. Did anything happen? Well, not to my knowledge, but I do know that they addressed it and they said they were going to be working on it. And with the Mirage getting a new owner and the new owner dumping millions into the venue for renovations, it was shocking that they went bankrupt and it never reopened. And it seemed to be concurrent with Mayor Adams' indictment. So, I mean, who knows if it'll be closed for good? Time will tell, but I will continue to dig and keep an eye on this. And I am still digging and looking into the death of Damani Alexander. I would love for people to reach out to me with anything that they know, because at this point, I am grasping here. No one wants to talk, and my reports, allegedly from the NYPD, my FOIA reports, they won't be back until January. So I got to keep working on this as much as I possibly can without, again, grasping for straws. There is a chance that in the meantime, I may move this podcast to every other week. I am not sure yet, but just make sure you subscribe so you can keep an eye on it. You can get an alert, and you can follow me on Twitter for updates as well. I'm Conlin_Lauren. And again, if you have tips, please email me, lauren@popcrime.tv. I appreciate everyone for listening to this, for supporting this podcast and this cause. Head on a swivel, guys. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time.